afternoon. Thank you all for having me, and thank you, I call him Al, but Mr. White for that introduction, and Dr. Brown. I'm really honored to be here today. It's always an honor to be in front of people to share your story, and as you all are in mass communication, you understand how important it is to document and share your story. And he talked to you about, I own Urgent and Primary Care, a clinic in Clarksdale. I'm the founder, owner, and we're going to be celebrating our six-year anniversary next month. So we've been doing it 6 years. But a couple of years ago, I always make a post on Facebook. I tell my story because if you know, I was born in Quitman County, from very humble beginnings, and became a teenage mom at the age of 15, then again at 17. I was a child of 10. My mom had 10 children, I was number 9, but I was the first one to complete high school. But with that completion of high school came, as I said, 2 children. I was the only one to get pregnant and have children before marriage and in school. Not only that, I had, anytime you have children as a teenager, you come into adulthood before it's really your time to come into adulthood. So you face things that I think a teenager shouldn't have to face, but you have to. But the bottom line, to get to the story, and my story is long, so I can't, I dare not take all the time telling that story, because if I did, then you wouldn't want to follow me and read my book, which is Write Your Own Story. So I formed a nonprofit agency, which is WYOS. I call it WYOS, but it's Write Your Own Story, because I believe that everybody has their own story. Everything that happened to you in life, whether you think it's small or whether you think it's big, is significant in your story and creating your path, your future, and honoring your path. So I think about things that happened to me as a teenager, as a child. I document, I write about it, talk about it, but all those things that happened, it empowered me to stand in front of you today, to tell you my story. So, and my story, Urgent and Primary Care, I've been nursing. I went to nursing school when I was 19 years old. Well, I was actually 18. My mom felt like she wanted me to be a nurse. Me, I was thinking, no way I'm gonna be a nurse. No, so sometimes your parents, most of the time they know better than we know. They see things way before we see them. So she wanted me to be a nurse, and I didn't want to be a nurse. You know what I want to do? Can somebody guess what they thought I wanted to be? Now, I'm from Marks, Mississippi. It wasn't a lot of college preparatory things. Wasn't a lot of people coming around trying to talk to you about, hey, you want to go to college? And then especially back in those days, because I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'll tell you my daughter's 38 years old. So, so if you go back those days, people, if you got pregnant, then hey, that's it for you. Nobody want to talk to you about going to college, because you need to get a job and take care of your responsibility, and that's how it was. But I came here to tell you this is a different story. You write your own story. I was the first one in my class. I probably was one voted less likely to succeed in that class because, like I said, I had 2 children. I didn't have the best behavior, and I graduated because I always have a love for reading. So I read a long time ago. I started reading. I would go to our local library and read books. And that kind of propelled me to move forward in my studies and what I did. So it wasn't hard for me in school because I already had the love of reading. And I would go to the library, and my mom would say, one thing she still allowed me and encouraged me, go to the library and read. I get frustrated, go to the library and read. And all that. We didn't have encyclopedias at home or anything like that. So I would go to the library and read. Anyway, when my class graduated, people was going off like you all, college campus, staying in dorms, doing all those things. And I had to live vicariously through them because I had 2 children and I wasn't going to imagine 2 little children in the dorm room with you. That wasn't happening. So I just made in my mind that I just wanted to get marry my little high school sweetheart. We had 2 children together and live happily ever after. I mean, no, that doesn't. Not only did it not work, it didn't last long anyway. I got out of high school, we got another girlfriend. I was like, okay. But after that, but I went on to school. As I'm at home, my mom has this idea that she wants me to be a nurse, and I have this idea that I don't want to be a nurse. Now, I ask you all a question. What do you think that I wanted to be? Who? A teacher? No. Librarian. News anchor. No, that's good. Huh? Artist, that's good. No. No, I need one. Veterinarian. My sister should have been there. I tell her that all the time. So here you go. You're not going to believe, but let me give you a little background. I told you that I grew up in humble beginnings in my family. So I was number 9, the first one to graduate high school. So it wasn't in my family, there wasn't a lot of talk about higher education and going to school to do things. When you got older, you got out and worked and helped your parents with the children at home, helped pay the bills. So it wasn't a thing about, going to college, all that stuff. You had to work. So in my mind, I just wanted to be a secretary. I thought that was, because I used to, and you know why? That's why I said do not despise the small things. I used to go to the office and the lady that sat at the desk at school seemed like she had the best job in the world. Maybe she did, I don't know, but it seemed like it impressed me. So I wanted to be a secretary, and I don't know, I just thought that for long. And then I had this vision in my mind of me sitting behind a desk. But my mind was a secretary. God's mind was a CEO. So when I made it to the desk and was sitting behind my desk one day, as the CEO of my own company, the first company I had, it came to my mind that thought I had when I was a little girl, of me behind the desk. And I said, God, that's why you say his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. So we have to be aware. Don't discount small things or what you think. I thought it was a secretary. He knew it was a CEO. Not only one time, but 2 times. So write your story. Write your own story. Now to give you a history about urgent, I'll go back to my nursing because this is significant. My mom was, she didn't finish school. She did a little hair on the side. She couldn't drive or do anything like some of your parents can do, or like I do for my children. Actually, she had me when she was over 40 and she got ill, so we had to help kind of take care of her. And when you get to that point, and I'm in school, parents come into the school to see how they're doing, and nobody came to see what I was doing. The only person that really encouraged me in school was who? The secretary? No, she probably would have, but it wasn't her. My baby daddy. That's how we end up with the children. That's bad, but it's the truth. So at that point, I think, and that's another thing I say, everything happened for a reason, and it's significant, and it's important in your story. It contributed to my story. So I think because a lot of people think if you hadn't had children, you'll be but I don't think so. I think because I had the children, I had to push beyond what I was already used to. So I had to push beyond. I knew it was something different for me because I was different from all my sisters and brothers already. My sister and brother, oh, you so crazy. All you do is read. All you do is read. So imagine them, my younger, I had a younger sister. She'd tell me now, she said, you never would come outside and play. Well, I was thinking, play for what? I'm reading the book, imagining myself out in the water doing something. So totally different. So when you have somebody that's different around you, or when you feel like you're different, don't think that's a bad thing. I thank God for being different. And I celebrate that daily. So my mom, every day she would talk, you need to go to nurse school, you need to do something with your life or do something, because she said, you're smart, I want you to do something. And in other words, what she was really saying is, she didn't want my talent to go to waste. She didn't know how to convey that in words or to push me to a point or help me with a college application or anything like that. But she wanted me to do something. So one day I go to the library. On the library door it says, apply for LPN school. You can take a test to apply for LPN school. I said to myself, I'm going to sign up for this and tell Mama so she can be happy, but I'm not going to do it. You know how we have some mischief. Signed up for LPN school and took the test. Well, I came home and told her she was so happy, and she was keeping up when the test was. I took the test, and I tried my best not to pass that test. I passed the test. I got home one day, and she said, you got your letter from the school? Open it. This is almost like somebody passing law school or something, to just imagine somebody who wasn't educated and want their child, to see them do something. Open it. I open it, and I'm thinking to myself, I know what to say, I ain't passed, I'm like, in my mind, like, yeah. I opened it, I said, oh my God, I passed. She was so happy, and I was like, ooh. But anyway, in that, back then you had to do, it was a two-phase thing. You had to go for an interview. So after the test, you go for an interview. I went for an interview, and I was determined not to, because remember, I'm going to be the secretary, not the nurse. So I said, I'm not going to pass this interview. I don't want to. So I got my best friend to come. I went over her house, and she dyed my hair blonde down each side, and we cutting. And came home. My mom was so mad with me, but it was time for the interview, right? I go to the interview, and it's a panel. About 4 or 5 people on a panel. I walk in the room. They have you sitting in the chairs waiting, like maybe I was sitting over here and waiting, and then you come up front and they ask you the questions and do your interview. And I went up, it was my time to go up for the interview. They asked me the questions, and I didn't really care about what I answered because I didn't want to be there. And I left. A couple of weeks later, the letter came again. My mom always said, you got a letter, you got the letter, open the letter. Opened the letter, and I'm knowing I bombed the interview. I said, surely I didn't get in school. Guess what?
You got accepted.
I got accepted in school. I know. So I got accepted in school, and I'm thinking, why in the world would they let me in school? Hair all messed up, looking all this, but when God has something for you, your hair, your clothes, nothing. You're going to get it. And that's what happened. Later, it was a gentleman on that panel. He said not only, he didn't really pay attention to me during the interview. He noticed me sitting in the chair. And he said something spoke to him and told him, that young lady needs to get in. So I said it was the voice of God, because I wasn't planning to be in. I went on, completed nurse LPN school, broke up with my baby daddy, and found out it was a whole world out there, away from Marks, Mississippi. Got a job in the hospital, started seeing professional people, and people started seeing me, and that's the first time somebody saw me. They said, "Oh, you're beautiful," and I was thinking, "Beautiful, me?" Now imagine, I never heard that. And I went to, so again, I'm this reader, I'm an LPN, and I saw all these RNs. I said, well, I'm going back to school to be an RN, because the money was, I was making $6.25 an hour as an LPN. So that's a long time ago. Anyway, I decided to go back to RN school, and this is when the story gets really emotional for me. I told my mom that I was going to go to RN school, and she was really happy. I applied. I got accepted into Northwest Community College, registered nurse school. I got there, and I was the only African-American person in the room. Accepted in there, and I felt, see, when you're not, when you hadn't been around certain people, then you don't know, you're not acclimated. You can't associate because you're used to a certain crowd, so it made me very uncomfortable. Sometimes you get placed in uncomfortable positions so you can grow. I was placed in that it was very hard for me. And I did experience a lot of prejudice. Some of my papers and things, but I got through the first semester. Here comes the second semester, and by this time I was fed up, because I told you earlier, or maybe I didn't, I had an attitude problem. I would fight in a minute. So I was really upset, and I said, you know, I'm gonna let this go. I just gone and be the LPN, and I did more than what some have done. Taking care of my children, I'm fine. I'm gonna let that go. And it was it was my birthday, and I said, I'm gonna tell my mom, she gonna be disappointed, but I just got to let this go. I go to my mom's house. I had my own apartment. I went to visit, she was to pick up my kids, and I'm talking to her. We're sitting out in the yard in Marks, Mississippi at her house, and she gave me a birthday card. On the front of the card, she had R.N. Williams. Inside the card, she told me, the writing said, look at each day as a new day. And she had $3. One from my son, one from my daughter, and one from her. And when I tell you I needed those $3, I was broke. And I said, oh, Mom, I needed these $3. Thank you so much. I left her that day and went to my apartment. That night I got a call, and they said, your mom has passed out, but she had really had a heart attack and died. And at that point, I knew, God, I can't take, anything else. But God knew that I could. He knew I'd make it through. I remember the card she gave me that said R.N. Williams. I never told her that I was going to quit school, because when I got the card, it sealed my mouth in my tracks. I couldn't say it. I said, I'll just wait until another time. So I think it was God telling me then that it wasn't the time. So I immediately went to the trash. I had thrown the envelope in the garbage where she had written on it. I pulled it out the garbage because when you lose someone, you want to have something to remember them by, something to hold on to. So I got that card out the garbage, and I saw that R.N. Williams on there. And I said, I got to go back now. And remember the class, I told you I was the only black person in there, and I was really a wildflower in there because I didn't really assimilate with them. And it wasn't really their fault, it was mine too, because I wasn't used to that environment. I went back to school a week later after burying my mom, and we had everything getting back together, and I decided that I got to just suck it up and go in here with these folks and do what I got to do. Well, I walked to the door of the class. The whole class stood up. They knew I had lost my mom. And they said, we're your family. And they hugged me one after the other. And they carried me. Really, we cried that day so much. But when I tell you I finished that class and finished it like in the top 10, I finished that class. And we got to the point laughing and talking to graduation. I'm the only African American in the class. Graduation, we had a pinning ceremony at the church. In the big church, look out the church, you don't see anything but Caucasian in the whole audience. They said, Mary, your family not coming? Where's your family? I said, my family here. 10 minutes later, about 50 black people walking. Everybody, my whole class turned around and looked at me and said, Mary. I said, yeah, that's them. And they was like, yay, they was happy for me. But finished RN school, went on and went to work and went to school, went to Delta State, got my BSN. Didn't stop there. I said, well, I'm one that if I start something, I got to finish, and it's not finishing. I went to Mississippi University for Women, got my master's degree. At that time, I was qualified to take the boards for nurse practitioner. I finished, got my nurse practitioner degree, worked a few years. All the time I'm working in the hospital. I worked in telemetry, surgery, medical, surgical, nursing. Everywhere in the hospital you could work, I had worked. Not knowing that I'm constantly building. Then I didn't know I was building on my own business. I was just thinking I was just working, moving from place to place, learning, doing things. As a nurse practitioner, I came out and I worked in the hospital as a hospitalist. And that is, you know, you go around and make rounds in the hospital. And a nephrologist came up to me one day. He said, you'll be perfect for working in dialysis. And I thought, no, I won't. I don't like all the blood and I don't like the smell of bleach. And if you've ever been into a dialysis unit, they sterilize with bleach and they clean the blood of the dialysis patient. That's how they're filtered for the kidneys. He went to administration, asked if I could work with him, and I had to meet him in the dialysis unit. A couple of days later, I met him there, and he opened the door. And when he opened the door, I saw my calling. I saw a bunch of people, hundreds of people, about 50 people that looked like me, connected to a machine. And I said, oh my God, what can I do to not have this happen to so many people? Young people, especially young men, were on dialysis, which means their kidneys had failed and they needed this for life-saving treatment. Anyway, so I started my plight in dialysis, did that for the last 13 years. I worked in dialysis 13 years, making rounds, taking care of patients, and I absolutely loved it. And I still do. They still come to my clinic, but God called me to open my own practice. He said, I need somebody to change the culture of healthcare. When you come to a clinic, you need to be able to say, hey, my medication you gave me isn't working. Is there something else we can do? Not just sit there and be the receiver, but also you want to be the giver. So I tell my patient all the time, not only do I help heal them, they heal me. Because we have dialogue back and forth, back and forth. And I enjoy taking care of them. So I own Urgent and Primary Care in Clarksdale. We opened it in 2018. And when I wrote the plan, I have a large family. And they'll come for Easter. I have sister in Milwaukee. They'll come down, everybody. And we have big Easter dinner. So I had this thing in my mind. I wrote the vision because I remember the scripture, write your vision, make it plain. I wrote out the vision and the plan for my clinic. I laid it on the table and I had my whole family. We gathered around the table and we prayed over the plan. And when I went forth to the bank to get a loan to open a clinic, you need a lot of money because healthcare, if you don't know, healthcare workers are very expensive. And after the pandemic, it went up 100%. So I went to the bank with my plan, my performer. I did all, crossed all the I's, dotted all the T's. I already had an accountant, so I knew my numbers was okay, and these are projections. I got to the bank, and the man told me, "What make you think we would want to take this risk?" That's what he said. He said, "What collateral do you have?" I said, "Well," he said, "Do you have the building?" I said, "No, I'm going to lease the building, you know." And he said, "Well, I'm sorry. We can't do this loan for you. Do you have anything else? What about your cars?" And I mind you, I think I was driving a BMW D in a car, and I was thinking, well, I don't think it's worth what I'm asking for in this loan. He said, "Well, your house is." Oh. So I had to give you my house and my car to help take care of people that God told me to take care of. I thought about it and I prayed about it. I said, "God, you told me that this is what I'm supposed to do, but yet I'm getting doors closed." I thought about it, and I've been working for years. I had a little savings, and this guy asked me, he called, he even wanted an appraisal of my house so he can see how much money he can get. I'm thinking in my mind, he didn't tell me this, but I'm thinking my business is gonna fail. They'll get them a decent house for a little or nothing, and then they'll leave me with zero. So I decided that I'm not gonna do the house. I'm not gonna do the car and the house. I need something to get me back and forth, and I need somewhere to sleep. And I grew up in poverty where I had a hard time finding a good place to sleep, so I'm gonna have something to, as long as God give me breath in my body, I'm gonna work and have somewhere to sleep. So I told him, I said, "Well, no, that's not gonna work." And he called, coming up, I'd already put out the literature. We opened a primary care clinic. Everybody was all excited, knowing that I was about to have this grand opening. So he called me the Thursday before, and it was gonna be Good Friday when I was having my grand opening. A year from when my family prayed over the plan, and all of them was coming back to see the fruition of what we had prayed over. And I told him, I said, he called me. He said, "I see in the paper you're still having your grand opening." He said, "Are you sure you want to go through with that?" Now, I skipped a lot of the dialogue that he and I had in between, because he had took me through the ring of, I cried every time I talked to this man, because, it's like, I'm trying to do something, you're not trying to help me, but you're supposed to be here to help me. But this time when he said, "Are you still going through with that plan?" I just felt the Spirit of God rise up in me. I said, "You got that right." And I walked out of there, and I promise you, I ain't walked back. A couple of years ago, I was invited to talk about my clinic, and guess who was there? I stood there in my biggest God sent me voice, and I said to myself, I said, "Yea, though I walk in the presence of my enemy, he anointeth my head with oil in the presence of my enemy. Yeah, my cup runneth over." So, since then, that gentleman has called me and commended me on my service and what I do. So, when I say write your own story, write your own story. People cannot narrate how they can try, they can assume, or look at somebody else's and assume that it'll go that way. But when I say that nobody knows, if you don't know unless you put forth an effort and do it. So I'm going to end here so y'all can ask me questions, but I do want y'all to know it's possible, and write your own story. Thank you.